Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Impossible. I'm your co host, Austin, and today I wanted to discuss a term that has been prevalent in my life for the past few years, but very much so has kind of encased itself within the umbrella of the perspective that I've had to build about life and how I see things, how I approach things, and how I attack and ultimately how I go forth in my pursuit of the impossible mindset and trying to find some rendition of harmony within life. It's a term that can really help explain one of the many aspects that's required to obtain goals that you set for yourself. And that word is tenacity. Being tenacious. Definition-wise, I have a couple of definitions from Webster's and the Thesaurus. So the first one here is, go to the right page. What does it mean to be tenacious? Well, definition-wise, it is persistent in maintaining, adhering to, or seeking something valued or desired. And a second definition, which I enjoy a bit more, is continuing despite difficulties, opposition, or discouragement. And some synonyms are persistent, persevering, unyielding, and relentless. There's that word again. To be unmoved. And so persistent in maintaining, adhering to, or seeking something valued or desired. I believe that to be a strong case for part of the strong case for how to pursue the impossible mindset is that you are persistent. Persistence is not something learned immediately. Persistence is not something gathered and understood within a day or two or a week or even a month. I've come to learn that persistence is something extremely difficult to grapple with, but is ultimately required for you to achieve not just a goal, but goal after goal, and to put yourself in the right place after right place. Persistence, being tenacious, is a duty that you have to fulfill within your pursuit of those goals. But it's built from discipline. It's built from a bit of motivation behind what you're pursuing, and having the belief in yourself that what you are pursuing is valuable, has value. That's why you make goals, and that's what the goals are for. Goals are there to be pursued after because they possess value within your life and your perspective of life. And for the impossible mindset, in gathering terms that I felt were required literature in understanding how you pursue the impossible mindset. Tenacity and being tenacious is certainly one of them. So how have I been able to apply this term to my life? And I'd certainly like to amplify that time table that I feel that I've been most successful with it are for the past, it would be within the time period of the past 3 months. So I found myself in kind of the later days of January and beginning of February of this year in a state of readiness for an improvement upon how my life had been panning out for the previous months and years ultimately, but I had gained some type of evolution through fighting the strife of events that had occurred. But once I got to this February, I knew that I had to step it up. I had to take it up to another level. I knew that was going to require and demand greatness from myself, of myself, to become a better self. And I would have to say that tenacity really gives me a form, gives me a descriptor of what that choice had to be, the choice that I ultimately made. And that was going after a much more fulfilling life, and again, something required in pursuing the impossible mindset. And I looked through the recent chapters of my life, noticing something that was missing. A lot of things were missing. But one thing that was missing from myself and going after what I wanted to ultimately achieve, and those goals themselves are not necessarily important in this case, but there was something missing from my approach to achieving those goals, and that was being tenacious, being unyielding in my pursuit, understanding what persistence really meant, being unmovable within the principles that I set for myself as being my foundation. And I realized that tenacity was missing. A sort of the relentless nature, the unrelenting spirit that a human can come to learn and to come to embrace. That's a Maybach. Wow. To embrace. But you have to be willing to open your mind, brush out some of the webs, the cobwebs, and keep those gears turning within your daily within your daily actions for you to try and understand what tenacity means, what persistence means. So in February, I sat down and had written down some goals for the year. And these are just personal goals that I had for where I wanted to find myself in the physical state, where I demand myself to be in the mental state, what I hope to learn from the emotional state. And for the spiritual state, it has somewhat come down to me admiring what I have been able to accomplish in the spiritual state, especially over these past few years. And I don't mean that I've become hardened in heart. What I mean is that I have become unmovable in my spirit for humanity. I will not yield in the face of adversity or opposition for my willingness to help anyone and everyone that I can. And I am not perfect. I'm not going to be able to help everybody on this planet. But what I want to do is make sure that I've done everything in my power to place myself in the position to be prepared for that, to be prepared to help whoever I can. For I have found in these previous 3 years the beauty of humanity, what it has to offer, how it can hold you up in times when you're feeling down. In the manner of which it can seemingly be able to provide a not a lifesaver. That's a candy, Austin. Something that's circular, that flotation device. There we go. We'll just use that for now. I forget the name of the... Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. The life-saving device given to somebody when they're drowning. Or about to drown. And that's what's been offered to me in times to where I wasn't expecting it. In times of gross malevolence being committed upon me by external forces that sit internally. That makes sense? Cancerous cells. Yeah. Those. So my spiritual state, I would say, is not in a place to where it's going to be bothered. And that's a really nice place to be. I'm not bothered by other spiritual minds. I'm not bothered by other religious minds. For me, humanity is my spirit. Existence is my savior. And a better tomorrow is my purpose. So in attaching tenacity to my physical state, it's been that coming out of the bone marrow transplant, I was actually pretty heavy. Well, I was pretty heavy in a very heavy situation. For this, I found myself in the state of being about 212 pounds, give or take, pound or two. And that was not muscle. There was not a whole lot of muscle about that, which was fine in the moment. I was happy to be getting enough calories in to where I actually didn't only not lose weight, I gained a little bit of weight because I went into the treatment at about 200. And that was on purpose because at that point in the beginning of December, I had figured that with what I was about to go through, that being at a lower weight would not be helpful in case I lose weight. And I don't feel it would not have put my body in a position to be as healthy as it could, given the circumstances. And so I knew that things were going to be rough. And coming out of it, there are things mentally and emotionally that I knew I was going to be battling with. And so the physical state is what I'm able to use to procure some type of internal natural medication and therapy to helping that mental and emotional state from going from bad to worse, and actually going from okay to pretty darn okay. So I wasn't gonna search for outside therapies. Not that it didn't work for me in the past. I knew that, and I intended on making the attempt to help myself as much as possible, while having an absolutely incredible group around me. I about said team. We are a team, but my Team Impossible shirt on, but we're a team, but family. There we go. The family that I've been I don't want to be self-deprecating, but I still sometimes struggle to determine how exactly I deserve the incredible group of individuals and people and humans that I call family. How I got to this point. But I'm here. I struggle to find the words that allow me to express my gratefulness for that. I'll still say it all the time that I'm grateful, and it never seems to be enough, but that's all I can come up with at the moment. But I know that staying persistent in my goals for the physical state that I've presented for myself it's going to have a cascading effect to my mental and emotional states. My mental state, I know, will benefit from the evolution of my physical state. Also, my mental state, after having March for a nice reset, I would say that it's going to get quite a lot of I achieved quite a bit of resolution in that time. March was an extremely powerful month for me, for my future self, and for my future family. A lot of negativity, a lot of involuntary malevolence, a lot of loathing for life was discarded in those moments. I took the hand that was dealt to me and reversed it, making sure death was very aware that I was not ready yet. Whatever I could do to make sure that I had a say in how proceedings were going to go. I grabbed a hold of those reins. And now we're going down that pathway in the pursuit of the impossible mindset. And for my mental state, I feel that has allowed me so much clarity to what I see as the coming steps, the coming days, weeks, months, years, for what I want to achieve. So, in my emotional state, I would say perseverance really comes through for this, due to the fact that I still, every single day, many times a day, experience many interactions to where I need to make sure that my reaction to external factors is under my control, that my emotions are under control. Not that I am perfect. I do have flare-ups, but I keep those to myself because that's where they need to be. That's where they need to be kept. Transgressions, that's not what I'm kind of talking about here, but the no use of a turn signal. The speed around me and then slow down. The holding of a door and no thank you. The solving of a problem without congratulations. It's just things that happen. I react how I react, and that I take pride in knowing that I have, and I am continuing to develop control of that. And I would say the other half of that would obviously be the daily practice of keeping under wraps your negative emotion. So that comes in the form again of writing and making goals for that. For evolving my perspective of how the world is going at the moment, local, microscopically, and on the macro as well. And just being aware that negativity will creep into the day, yet continuously working on the patience to see when it's going to occur, grab onto it, control it, and divvy it up to where it needs to go. A lot of that comes from external forces that you encounter on the daily, but there's also a lot of internal thoughts that come up that are also needing to be dealt with. You know, it's a daily struggle. It really is. But it's something that we have to do to find ourselves continuing down that path and pursuing the impossible mindset, finding some harmony, ultimately persevering. And so that's how tenacity has been presenting itself within my life. In the past 3 months, I've come to realize that has ultimately what's been one of the many things, again, but a big aspect that's been missing from my pursuit of the impossible mindset and pursuit of my goals is the lack of tenacity. And a quote by Marcus Aurelius I feel really can kind of encapsulate and give us a bit of a physical analogy, a picture of what that means is: to be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea still falls around it. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea still falls around it. And that's what I find myself relating to most out of that, is standing unmoved, and that the raging of the sea, the raging of the times, the raging of what is going on in this world right now, that I can stand unmoved against that tide, look forward, and find where I want to go. In that second definition, continuing despite difficulties, opposition, or discouragement. Difficulties, whether they are innate or brought upon at a later date. An example, diagnosed with cancer, something that I can speak from. Continuing through having that occur, I believe, is it was paramount for me to understand that the raging of that sea that I was about to face was going to be unrelenting in itself, and that I had to equal that and then learn how to be one step above that, be one step ahead, and prepare my body and my mind for ultimately not just a battle, but many battles over the course of a war against that raging, against those unrelenting sieges, and that the walls of my castle may stand firm, and I can get through it. And if I can get through it, I will get through it. I don't see being tenacious as something that you can engage in halfway. I find it as being something you have to 100% commit to, like you have to 100% commit to your goals. Otherwise, there's a good chance that you're not going to achieve them. And so why set goals in the first place if you're not going to put 100% into it? That may seem like a silly point, but it's a reality for a lot of people. They wonder why things are not going their way without realizing how much control they have. In times where we seem to be continuously beat down, those are the moments to where being tenacious can really come through. Difficulties that we face, opposition that sets itself in front of us, that set themselves in front of us, or discouragement of even attempting to engage within that pursuit of the impossible mindset and a better life. I can't speak on a lot of external discouragement. I have experienced almost all encouragement within my time before, during, and hopefully this is after my battle against cancer. And I'm very lucky to have received that encouragement, because I do know of people who are there in the world of battling cancer, who unfortunately don't experience a whole lot of encouragement. And you can see it in their faces, and you can see it in their eyes, and their actions, and their attitude. Not in having an attitude, but in their general aura, I guess you could call it, their attitude of how they see life in that moment. And you can't blame them for it. Mountains of encouragement when you're going through such times like that can still seem like a molehill, but even that can still help you across that line, across the finish line. And so the other place that discouragement can come from, it comes from, I would say, probably more times than external, or more times than not, would be the internal side of that. Discouragement coming from yourself. not having the confidence, not having the know-how, not having the preparedness for what you're about to experience. In the world of cancer, it can beat you down to a pulp. And if you are not already an extremely confident individual, it can take you to your knees very, very quickly, rapidly, and aggressively too. And that was me for a little bit, especially when I first relapsed and I had to go to Cleveland. There was quite a lot going against me, I felt, that was internal. And for months during that and months afterwards, I did not realize that being tenacious was going to be one of the many uses and fuel for attack against that discouragement, against that lack of confidence. And I don't remember the exact quote, but it's something that Matt and I share quite a lot from Hormozzi, is that confidence comes from having a shelf with self-evident, but ultimately just proof of previous victories. Confidence is derived from looking on that shelf and seeing that you've accomplished goals, you've obtained achievements, you've battled against seemingly impossible feats, and somehow you were victorious. That in itself would be an extremely powerful first step in gaining that confidence. And tenacity requires confidence. Confidence in yourself. Confidence in what you want to achieve, and that you're going to achieve it. I didn't see a shelf filled with many victories at the point of my diagnosement. I wasn't pursuing anything related to a bachelor's degree that I had received, and I was very aimless in my direction of life at that point. And in the past 3 years, I feel that I have found my purpose, found direction. And tenacity was one of the many aspects that brought that to life, that brought that to my reality, ultimately giving me and setting itself as one of many aspects of a reason for my existence. And I wanted to end with another quote by Marcus Aurelius again. And it's something that, this is a quote that I read fairly often to myself, because of how much I've had to feel, see, experience, and deal with the death for these past few years. It is not death that a man should fear, but rather he should fear never beginning to live. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following me on this series of Imperfect Harmony as you get to be with me. You get to explore this path towards finding some resemblance of harmony within my life and how I'm approaching it and why I'm approaching it. Pursuit of the impossible mindset is not some small feat. I feel that this pursuit is paramount, and we feel that this pursuit is paramount to live a better life, to make a better life for those around us, and to do our absolute best to serve the community. Because us here at A Possible Performance are striving to build a global culture of strength, fostering of spirit of growth, in constant pursuit of the impossible. Take care. And as always, be impossible.